I'm about to introduce you to a guy who owns 30 plus houses in the community, all purchased between the prices of $30,000 and maybe up to like $160,000 plus. However, one house in this community are going for $800,000. I just seen something for $900,000, and he owns 30 plus of them. And the house I'm about to take you into is not only a museum, but at one point in time, an African American man was not allowed to own this property. African American man or woman. Catch me on the other side. Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Nasa, aka the Real Estate Doru. I'm not a guru, I'm a Doru because I actually do this business. Today, I'm gonna let you guys get some conversation from a mentor of mine, a personal friend of mine, extremely successful guy. Fast forward to today, we're in 2022. People desire to start their own business, make $100,000. People desire jobs to make $100,000 a year. In every major city in America, it takes $100,000 a year to actually live in that particular city and enjoy it, except for DC, New York City, and California, which you need at least 150 to survive and kind of enjoy the city. The Forbes article I read said. We have a guy here who was born average parents, lower class guy, not born, didn't have rich parents at all, from a small town in South Carolina. And I've been to Sumter before. And let me tell you this, like, and I'm from Jersey, just to put this in perspective. When you drive to Sumter, you actually see cotton fields. Like, you literally drive, you see cotton fields, which it was mind-boggling to me. Like, what? Like, they still got those? Like, they really growing cotton. So you actually see that driving to Sumter, and that man is actually from there, right? But he went to the military, got a good job at prestigious Bank of America, and was making six figures in the early 2000s. Which was so amazing, most people get the golden handcuffs syndrome, right? The golden handcuffs meaning that, hey, I make a bunch of money in my job, I love what I do, why would I want more than this? What's your problem? But he was able to build something that most people could only dream of, and he was able to do it to little to no money. Instead, I'm just going to introduce you to Chris, and I'm going to let him tell you a story. So Chris, first I want to introduce the people to you, let them know, where you're from, and after you got out of high school, what you did in your career in the Bank of America.
Well, I'm excited. Again, as always, I got to give this brother a shout. Much love. Because, he says I mention him, but I'm always watching him and the things he's doing. Because, again, it's all about cultivating minds for change and opportunity. Cultivating minds for change and opportunity. And I want to say that first because the mind is where everything starts at. And so you heard my humble beginnings, but it goes a little further back than that. And I want everyone to understand it's not where you start from, it's where you're going. Because my beginnings, we started from a small town called Sumter, and actually it's even smaller because I came from Rembrandt, South Carolina. I got to give a shout out to Rembrandt, which is even smaller than Sumter because we had one stoplight. So if you drove past Rembrandt, you passed that one stoplight, you were done. You already passed it. But I was born with a learning disability. They put me in a resource class for 7 years. So imagine the frame of a small box and someone telling you to sit inside that box because they think you have a learning disability and that's where you belong. And your learning capability is only to be 7th grade. Now let that sink in because when that happens, something to you happens. You start to get your frame of reference shaped to a 7-year education inside of a box. And I knew then that I had to change, and I knew that my mind was the greatest thing that I had. So coming from humble beginnings is not, again, where you come from, it's where you're going. And I'm excited, again, now to be in Charlotte and making changes. But that the process that NASA talks about is really the mindset and the journey. And I've had a long journey, and I'm excited to be here, man. But South Carolina, 22 years, veteran, retired Air Force. And again, just like NASA, I'm a doer. I'm always in the business doing. So when you see me, you'll never catch me 9 times 10 in a suit. You want to catch me in some old clothes, working and changing lives at the same time, hiring people to make their lives better.
Absolutely, he's not lying about that. Like I really, we met up one day. He was really like doing the work himself on houses, and I'm like, why? So but yeah, so he manages his own property. You still manage your own properties, everything?
I got most of them managed. I got property manager on one side, and again, once you get to a certain point, you got to figure out how to your time is valuable. Time is everything. So you have to figure out the balance between your time and then getting things done. But for me, working on houses and working in houses is like working with people. I like to see the change happen, and I want my hands in that change. So I tell people when I'm walking through doing standing on the floor or doing something, for me, I'm always praying, putting God first, but really praying over that house because now I'm in the frameworks of it. And it works for me. But also I get to talk to my guys, motivate them and make and be able to see the community.
Okay, so all right, now you retired Air Force and Navy, right? So
Air Force.
Air Force.
Only way to fly.
Oh, okay. Retired Air Force, and then you got a career at Bank of America in the IT department.
Well, and that's when I tell people that part's kind of amazing because imagine being in a community and going home. Imagine going home and sit down with your parents and tell them that you work at Bank of America and you're in a trading floor environment. Like you talked about, I didn't come from a family that, you know, none of my family had businesses. They didn't start businesses. Most of them hadn't gone to college. I think my sister was the first to go to college. I'm the second. But the thing about it is that, you know, going home and telling my father that I'm actually running the trading floor. The first thing the question is, what is the trading floor? What does that look like? And so one thing I can relate to is go turn on the news and look at the New York Stock Exchange. That was my job every day. So it was very hard to explain to people what I did in corporate America. But, you know, it was the guy from resource class is now running the technology for an entire trading floor, fixed income shops, a lot of money.
A lot of money.
I couldn't even explain to my people back home what I was doing.
All right, so this particular house is actually looks like a house, but it's actually a museum. We're gonna tour that. The coolest thing about this particular house is on the deed. This is a bigger house for this particular neighborhood, but on the deed it says that a African American man cannot own this house. Cannot own this house. So anybody African American, you weren't allowed to own this house pre-lease before 1968. 1968, so when the second set of civil rights came and wiped it down on paper, you know. But years of this house changing hands, you own the house now, and you're African American, and this is a historic house and actually a museum. But like, how does that, you know, make you feel?
Well, when we first, I'll start to see how it made me feel, and I'll tell you the story of the house, because you know how it made me feel when we were doing the historic designation for the house. It's like sometimes peeling back the layers of history and looking at something, you hear about it, you know about it, but then when you see it in reality, it becomes a shock. So when we first went through the report about the historic designation for the house and really saw that line that said, you know, the African Americans could not own this house, I sat back for a second and said, how far it really come?
Yeah.
We're a little bit over 400 years plus removed from slavery, and we're still being looked upon as certain stigmas that are now entrenched in deeds that can't even be changed. If I wanted to, I don't think I could actually go back and change that. So it's entrenched in the history. But just because it's in the history of what this house stands for, we have the right now and the responsibility to let people know about it, but also have the conversation of why it happened. But what do we do more importantly going forward? It's not a crutch. It's a launch pad. And so it made me feel a little bit honored, because the things that were written in the past, we can erase them and change them in our own minds and how we interact and engage. So it's a feat for us, and I'll even tell you, you know, the storyline behind the house made it more powerful, because I didn't get this house through an actual sale. Wholesaler had picked it up, and the owner, and it's so odd, I'm gonna back up. The owner that owned the house did not want to sell it to me. And it was because I was black. And
wow.
So, and I was buying a few houses, and they thought, well, you got enough. And I'm telling you, that's kind of how it came across. So they ended up selling it to a wholesaler, and I ended up having to get it from a wholesaler for a little higher price, which was fine. I don't mind anybody making money.
Yeah.
And so, but when I got the house, it wasn't and the reason why it became a personal for me wasn't because of the history of the house, wasn't because of the owner. This house was labeled as one of the highest number of SWAT calls in the state of North Carolina back in 2000. I've seen at least 3 times this house get busted by SWAT, and it was a huge feat. But the lady who lived there, her name was Gina, and Gina had a unique story. Gina, at the time, and I'm not afraid to say it because she knew it, and I'll tell you how I met her. But Gina, I was president of the neighborhood, and Gina lived here, and she allowed a lot of transient people to stay here, and they had a lot of stuff going on. I'll say that. But when one day I was walking for an HOA meeting, and I said, Gina, how are you doing? She was standing around the porch. I said, Gina, how are you doing? She said, I'm doing good. I said, Gina, in a community, she said, you don't like me very much. I said, no, Gina, that's not the case. I said, Gina, you see, in a neighborhood, you either bring something positive or you bring something negative. And I said, I won't answer it, but you have to make that choice. About six months later, Gina died. And when Gina died, we bought the house from the wholesaler. But when I bought the house, they had a visual on this lawn for about 6 weeks straight. Just transit guys coming over. They weren't drinking a whole lot. They weren't making a lot of noise. They brought chairs out and they talked about Gina's story. But what amazed me the most was no one ever went inside the house. Now the house didn't look like this when we bought it. It was hard. It was a lot worse shape. But no, even though people were breaking in and stealing copper, no one went inside that house. No one disrespected. And so one day I walked up and said, guys, look, I got to get started on working this house because I got to fix it up or the city's going to tear it down. And the guy said, you don't understand, do you? I said, what do you mean? He said, you see, to you, she was a bad person. I said, I never said that. I told him what I told Gina. I said, you got to make a choice, either something good or something bad. But he said, you see, when it was cold outside, she gave us a place to stay, food to eat. To us, to you, maybe she may have been a nuisance, but to us, she was a mother. And right then it hit me because I realized standing on the step about on the edge of where that pot is, I realized that day that this house could never be a house that someone physically just live in anymore because we had to take something that was negative and make it positive. And we need to use Gina's story because like what I was doing to try and rebuild communities, she was doing the same thing in a transit population. She was changing lives. So sometimes you have to take and flip your perspective because what I was trying to do to rebuild communities, she was doing the same thing. And it touched me so much that I said, you know what, this is gonna be a house that I'm gonna make a statement out of, and we did that. We this house, when you look at all the architecture of this house, except for HVAC, electrical, and plumbing, all the panels that went up, all the paint you see, the doors, the side railings were all done by individuals that either came from the community or were homeless. Let that sink in. The same people we count out is the same people we took this house with and Gina's story and counted in. So when you walk through this house, you see this house, you see what we did. We did it with people that were marginalized and that were counted out, and we gave them opportunities and jobs. Again, I always tell my guys from the gate, I can't change your past. I can only look at your future, but I can't deal with your BS today. And that's how we got this house renovated. It worked.
All right, well, let's get inside, man.
All right.
Okay. All right. So,
man, this is it. So I'm so excited. So as you can see, it's fully furnished, and this is now it's a creative space we use to have conversations with the community, and we donate the space to our nonprofit Community Dream Village for a while to utilize the space for the community side of it, and then we've also done some Airbnbs and really cool things with the house. But predominantly, it's just like this.
So it's just like this. Beautiful hardwood floors, recessed light, the ceiling fan. I mean, the house is basically, it's like you said, it's beautiful. So over here we have a dining room. Okay, and I remember the last time, our art show here.
Yep. I've had a few times, I've had some great conversations here with some of the things that we're doing around educating the community around finances. Because again, if we don't talk about finances, we're not talking about anything. And so I tell people all the time, we've done a lot of those sessions here. We've had the city here, everyone from Hugh McCall back down to the mayor has walked through this house. Wow.
Okay. And right, we have the kitchen.
Yep.
Kitchen looks brand new, like it's never been used, man.
I actually, a few families have cooked here, and we did it. But again, I'll tell you. So when I bring people in, I always tell people this is a part of the model I've always adopted with the residential side of what we do is based off of this house. So I tell people that when you look at a house, I do a hard concept. The same material you see in this house, you'll see in our low-income houses. And I tell people that, I say low-income, I mean houses that we're renting that aren't over 1,000. So I tell people that the key thing for me is that, I would never put somebody in a house that my grandma wouldn't live in. And I love my grandma.
Yeah.
So the same tile you see here, the same hardwood floor factory we put in. Now, we probably can't put the granite in, but we'll get close to it. A nice laminate or a composite will go in. But this is what you see in this house is the same house. And I'll even show you a secret. Those cabinets are Home Depot cabinets, unfinished cabinets, just painted.
Now, you had homeless guys do the work.
Yep.
Homeless guys do the work. But guys, I just want to zoom in on something, right? So there's so much talent and these people are getting overlooked. But look at this tile job, right? Like, look how neat it is. Look at the design that they did. you know, and these are just people we walk past. They have all these skill sets, but unfortunately, you know, nobody gives them that opportunity to put it to work. But you actually gave them the opportunity and paid them.
Yeah, and it's just like anything. That's it's about giving people vision. Once you set that vision, everything comes into play. You got to speak it. And like I told one of the guys, one of the first guys I hired was a guy I found under a bridge. And he was sitting there, and so after a long conversation, he asked, "Why did you hire me?" I said, "Because I saw an eagle sitting amongst chickens." I said, "Only thing I ask, not to change what you're doing today, because I know you got some functional issues, but every day just do a little bit less. And the more you do a little bit less, our conversations, my background, we make it work." And we did that. Now, it wasn't an easy road. Nobody think it's going to be easy to go find somebody with a challenge to put in the work. I am not saying that. I will not co-sign on that, because I've had plenty of days. But when you're out here working with people, just like at your job or wherever you are, when you're around people, you impart in people. And so I imparted in those guys hope, faith, and the ability that we can get things done. Because remember, I came from a resource class. People did the same thing to me. And if I believe in you enough and talk to you enough, we can get anything done. And that's what we did. So this is the possibility of what people said was impossible.
Yeah.
So let me finish showing you the rest of the house. Come on around. So this is the master.
Correct. Yes.
Now I'm going to show you some of the cool work. Oh, it got all the bells and whistles.
Yeah, I see that. The little
like it, right? Like
yeah,
it, right?
Yeah.
Home Depot special, bro.
Yeah.
But check out the shower, man. And I'll tell you, I've never spent a night in this house. I've never slept in this house at all.
Bro, got the double shower.
Double shower, man. And so when we have art galleries, what we did with a cool concept was we took, if you see the hangers on the wall, every room and every factor of the house used to have artwork in it, and we still do it. We had Tiafo and Tommy Robinson come in and put artwork through the house. So when you stayed here or we had events, there was always art on the wall. And that art, we bring artists in and they tell that story about their art, and we try and sell the art as well. So we gave an opportunity to use art as a commonality to drive conversations, to overcome our differences. Remember, this was a neighborhood at one point that was 100%, well, 99% Afro-American and 1% Caucasian. And now it's mixed. But that mix is based off conversations, because anytime a community starts to change, you have to understand that people from different backgrounds look at things different, and the way we win is we start to talk about it. And that's what we did in this community, and that's what this house stood for, was a way to use art to drive the conversations and say, guys, let's figure out, don't push me out, but have a conversation. Let's talk about why. Let's talk about my fear, but also talk about the opportunity, and that's what we did here. I'll tell you, we had a cool conversation with some seniors when we started talking about the possibility of what gentrification would look like for this community, because there were two articles that came out. One in 2000 said that this was the top 25 most dangerous neighborhood to live in America. I lived through it. And then there's another article came out in 2010 that said that this was the third fastest gentrifying community in America. Not state of North Carolina, in America. But when the article came out, if you read the article, it didn't talk about displacement, it talked about value and prices. And so these houses, predominantly this house, when we first bought this house, we paid $147 for it. This house today is worth $800,000.
Easy, $800,000 easy, yeah.
You know, it's just crazy, $800,000.
Yeah.
And so, but the thing about it is, this community had a lot of displacement, so we didn't lose a lot of the original homeowners that were in the community. Our values just went up. But again, that goes back to how my model works and the things that we're doing, which I'm always willing to talk about, because I got a lot of cool things I'll be telling people about on how I did it. A Jack and Jill.
A Jack and Jill, okay.
And this is a cool room here, which I like this room a lot, because this opens out again back to another double porch. And that was designed. We left this door here because I wanted to give a cool concept of being able to walk around to a cool porch.
Back outside.
Wraparound porch.
The car. So yeah, this wraparound porch is definitely nice.
Now, I want, the reason why I think it's important, because again, I always tell people, you have to have a mission that drives you. We could have Airbnb'd this house out. We could have done a communal concept. But when I look back at what my mission was, I wanted to drive and do something that was for the community at that time in a way. Now it's starting to change a lot. We are looking at new ways to do this house because there is the money out there. There's a lot of opportunity to do the house and create those not only just money but experiences here. Because imagine now black families live in a house that blacks couldn't own.
Wow.
That's the concept. So again, and then at the same time, it's not about the color, but it's about creating an experience and telling the story. Because when we understand what we've been through as a people and other cultures, we're able to learn from each other, and that's how you grow community. It's not about our differences, it's not about our challenges. How can we grow together and move forward? And you can't move forward without understanding what the foundation is. So again, we had to work with the Historic Commission, and we were able to get the house. They looked at all the drawings. We didn't change the exterior of the house. It still has the original windows in the house, which are amazing. And then we piped in the bathroom. So this house has 4 bedrooms and 4 baths. This is the half bathroom downstairs. But let me take you to a cool spot in the house. Now this wasn't here at all. So I'm gonna say, being with a background and a little bit in engineering and also architect, we put this together. So we took an attic space and turned it into an actual living space.
Wow.
So we opened this out and
Vaulted ceilings and everything.
yep. So we kept that and made it cool. Now, you may not think in looking at, but those windows were original windows. We did have to change out to add 2 windows, replace 2 windows. But the thing about it was the past, the future, and the present standing there. And right now, if you bend down low enough, you can see straight downtown if the tree wasn't there.
Yep.
So at night when you're here, you can actually look out and see all the way downtown.
Yeah.
We got some cool things about to happen because again, we're going to make the house an experience house. You will still see some of the artwork from the Latiba Museum. If you're from Charlotte, you know about the collard green factory. That's Tiafo. His artwork was laced all the way down the wall here. But we're going to put a small little bowling alley here. So when you stay here as an experience, when we do open house back up Airbnbs or some VRBOs, you have a cool bowling alley that'll be here. Right. With a shower. Wow.
Shower's pretty nice.
House didn't look that big, did it?
No.
And then we got back here another room. Now this is like the best part of the house for me because this is actually still fully fledged original. We didn't even raise these windows up or do anything with them. These windows were pocket windows. And again, they look over the back. So you'll notice upstairs, there's 3 windows. There's always 3 on the front and 3 on the back. And we didn't change these window sets. So I'm excited about what we did with the house, but I'm excited the fact that all the guys that worked on it. And I can't take any credit for all the work that was done in craftsmanship because they did. And again, it's the people that you count out that were counted in on this project. And for me, a blessing was had a guy stop by and he talked about he almost OD'd in this house. And he was like, man, Gina saved my life, and it's amazing what you guys did with that to honor her and his legacy. And now he's functional, and he's got a family and doing well. Those are the things that we do when we look at what we do in building communities and working in real estate and changing our lives. You don't realize the lives that you can change by rebuilding communities. And that's what this is all about.
All right, man. So, all right, now we walked this house. Now this community is like prime real estate. Depending on which way you're leaving downtown, this can be the first community that you pass by.
Yep, I'm coming down Tryon Street.
Coming down the first community, depending on which way you leave from downtown. And the views of the city is spectacular here. It's insane, the views you get. But you bought into this neighborhood. You own 30 plus houses in the neighborhood. You bought into this neighborhood not only it was dangerous, it was probably 90% African American at the time?
98. We had one white guy.
Okay, like 98% African American at the time. You bought all your stuff in here, and you built this big rental portfolio. But you did it before the gentrification. The city had no plans on coming this way yet. What made you say, "Hey, I'm gonna buy in this neighborhood"?
2 things. One, I was in a meeting. The first thing was I'll tell you. The first thing was I was in a meeting and it was just talking about Charlotte development, and they had this plan called a Big Idea, and they talked about how they were looking at developing areas of Charlotte, and they talked about this little community. Now, I hadn't moved over here yet. They hadn't bought a house here, but I was in the meeting. I just remember specifically Lockwood, and they said that right now they were talking about the light rail project that was supposed to go down Tryon Street, but now that light rail goes down, it goes towards NoDa. And when they were talking about this neighborhood, they said something that caught my attention. That right now they weren't pushing any funding to that area. So when you hear that is being said, that means that you're basically defunding, because you're not going to push funding to create jobs, opportunities, and jobs and opportunities for that area and resources. So what's going to happen to Lockwood? You mean to tell me you're not going to put any effort to try and stabilize the area you know already has crime issues, lack of resources, jobs, and no food like grocery stores? Wow, that's not fair. But it didn't dawn on me. The second thing that happened that really ironclad for me was I was at Bank of America, and I never forgot, I was sitting at my desk, and I was I had to run a meeting with all of my colleagues. So all of my colleagues came from New York, Chicago, and Atlanta to come to Charlotte for a meeting with me to talk about our platforms. And on the way from the airport, there was an accident. So they had to go up 85 and come down Graham Street and turn into Lockwood. And when they got into Lockwood, the taxi driver told them, slide into the seats and lock your doors. This neighborhood is bad. And these guys from New York and Chicago did this. I was shocked. So they get to the office and they're telling, as an icebreaker, I'm in the office setting up a meeting, and one of my guys is telling the story, and I'm listening, not turning around. I heard Lockwood, I heard he said, I heard how they slid in, how they were afraid of what they saw. And then one of the guys said, Chris, where you live? And I turned around and I thought for a second. I could have lied. I could have said I lived in university because I had a house in university. Or I could have said somewhere else. And I looked at him and said, I live in Lockwood. And that day, my whole entire life about community changed, because I could have said a lie and kept face in front of my peers, or tell the truth and realize that that community was a direct reflection of me. Because when they rolled through that community, they saw a community that was 90% Afro-American. I was standing in an office room with all of my colleagues that were 98% Caucasian and 1% Afro-American. Let that sink in. So I knew I had to face my truth, but also in facing the truth, go back and make a change. And that's why I came back and said, I'm not going to talk about Lockwood, I'm going to go change it. And today we're standing in the product of that change. And it wasn't me, it was being the catalyst that created the change. And it worked.
And this is the part I was going to touch on. You believe in your vision so much, and you have a child, and you believe in your vision so much, you moved into this neighborhood with all this going on, and you said, we're going to change this.
I was a full-time father, man. I had my son full-time, again, single father, and had my son, I think it was 1 or 2. Because I remember being on meetings talking about some shootings in the neighborhood, having my son on my shoulder, doing an interview with a newscaster talking about how we're going to solve crime. Or my little son sitting beside my leg and we're talking about how to cure some gang violence and get people engaged in the community versus disengaged. And then also how to stabilize people to understand that home ownership and conversation around housing wasn't a big issue. So I tell people all the time, you can't look at a community and look at all the bad things. Try to find the positive things. Don't ever count the guys out who have maybe fell on a hard time or gotten in a situation. But I promise you, a conversation with somebody on the wrong path at the right time can change their lives and it can change yours too.
All right, so we're starting to wrap up, right? You got in buying houses as low as 30, all the way up to like 100 plus. And you accumulated probably a half or a large portion of the neighborhood that you own. Now you have, fast forward, and I'm sure in 2000, when you were doing this in early 2000, people was like, man, that guy's crazy. I don't know what's wrong with that guy.
Everybody said that.
Yeah, everybody said he was crazy. Now fast forward 2022, I sent you a listing, whereas a house is going to get listed for $899.99. And it's $900,000.
Right across the street.
$900,000 across the street in this same community. Now you're looking like a genius.
I'll tell you, I tell people, when you think about commitment and I tell people preparation, perseverance, and patience. Those are the 3 P's that I use a lot in my conversations, because when you look back at when I started, nobody would give me a loan. I went to 15 banks, 30 banks over 10 years, and they all told me no. Now, if you are getting no's, that means that you got to continue to have that patience and perseverance, because it will take a while, but you got to be prepared for when you get that yes, what you're going to do. So it took me almost 10 years to get a yes from 30 banks that told me no. And so, and I lost a lot of friends. I always tell people, when you're on the journey to where you're going, if you're following your dreams and you're on the right journey, in the right path, it's a lonely road. When you start to go out there, you can attest to this, man.
Absolutely.
It's been many times you out there by yourself in the house working, or trying to teach some people how to wholesaling, or just do it yourself.
Right.
You know that it's a lonely road. Imagine being in a community. I'm working 70 hours a week, coming home, raising a son, in the military, being in the community, and now having to work in the house 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, sanding the wall, patching the wall, fixing some plumbing, sanding some floors. You call your homeboy and homegirls, they out partying and chilling.
Right.
I'm here and sanding floors, but now those same people are asking me how you did it. And so that's why we're creating all the classes and products that we're doing now, because I want to tell you how I did it.
All right, so how can people find you on social media?
Mr. CD Man on Instagram, and you can look me up on eFix Wealth Builders on Facebook. We're about to launch up with a cool concept called Conversations with Chris, which I'm gonna have you on as well. I'm gonna talk more about it, because it's time for us to step into the realm of knowing and doing, and that's what you're doing, man. So that's why I'm always so proud to connect with you and just talk, because again, I'm always watching.
All right.
I might be quiet, but I'm always watching, man.
So we're gonna put those links to his Instagram and the Facebook in the description. So make sure you click on those if you want to get in touch with him, man. And yeah, man, I appreciate you, man, just letting me do this, man. So yeah, bro. Hey, thank you for making it to the end of the video. I really appreciate y'all. So, hey, comment below. Were you inspired by this? Does this give you some clarity in your life? Is this something that can you see yourself doing? We're actually still in the neighborhood. This is the skyline view, which is actually beautiful. If you want to learn what I do, get the first few chapters of my latest ebook. Just all you have to do is go to fliphouseslikeburgers.com. You can also click the link in the description as well to get the first few chapters of my ebook for free. It's on me. So if you like it, great. If not, I totally understand. Also, to see more of the Buy Back the Block series, make sure y'all click the video below. Just click that joint, man. Watch some more.